Many's online.
Well, good afternoon, members of council, members of our management team. We have a guest in our lobby, Laura, and great to see you here. We do have 7 attendees that have logged on. It is 4:04, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First of all, our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the town of Stephenville as the ancestral homeland of different populations of indigenous people. We also acknowledge with respect the rich histories and cultures of the Mi'kmaq, the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. I would ask a member of council that we approve the agenda as circulated by our town clerk. Moved by Councilor Ramos, second by Councilor Myra White. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Approval of the minutes, number 4. Be it resolved that the minutes of March 6, 2025, public meeting of council be approved as presented and circulated by email by our town clerk. I would ask a member of council with move. Moved by Councilor Maureen Hines, second. Second Deputy Mayor Susan Fallow. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, are there any matters arising from the minutes of March 6th? See no matters, so we will move on. Today we have no proclamations and delegations. It'd be a great one to say how great the equinox is and the first day of spring, but that's enough to be said now. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to our Chair of Finance Committee report, 7.1, Councilor Myra, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome everyone online. Finance Committee, 7.1. Item number 1, accounts payable. Be it resolved to approve accounts payable for March the 20th, 2025 in the amount of $178,493.43 as presented. I so move.
Moved by Councilor Myra White, seconder.
Second.
Second, Councilor Aaron Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Mine, carried.
Item number 2 is approval to travel. Be it resolved to approve 1 council member and 1 staff member to attend FCM Annual Conference and Trade Show 2025 in Ottawa from May the 29th to June the 1st, 2025. I so move.
Moved by Councilor Myra White, second. Councilor Laura Hiller. Question, any updates from our manager maybe on the conference? Any question?
No updates, just that we pre-booked, but the cost. There are quite a number of matters and funds that the town is applying for funding with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and those came from the prior meeting that was attended in Calgary. In this case, there was a follow-up on those items as well as because it's ongoing on a daily basis. Everything that we're doing as far as housing funding and other things that FCM is involved in. Environmental, housing, other initiatives from our wastewater treatment plant and other items that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities supports and is involved in Government of Canada's funding. So shared jurisdiction in some of these areas.
And we had some discussion in our public meeting of finance that some of the costs possibly could be done with points that have been accrued on our Royal Bank Visa or.
They can be done with points. However, it's very difficult to until we make a commitment to do it and see exactly what we would use. So those points can't be used for anything else other than town related activities, travel. Maybe the purchase of small items that have to be in the catalog that they use, but those are possibilities. And again, it's just everyone got very busy to have a detailed report on exactly what number of points we have and what it is that we would use in order to do that. There is a potential it could also be used for the foundation. So we'll have to bring that to council after just to see if there's an acceptance of it as a means by which we can avoid having to pay out cash.
And the other question I would have, is there room in our travel budget allocated for 2025?
We have allocated travel for this type of event in our various travel budgets. Yes, there is money to cover that. You know, we did a very lean budget overall, and even cut back on some of the, as you noted, the cost of tax rates on our residents, but we did allocate money to use for travel in this case and other cases. We may get to the end of the year and not, you know, have to juggle things around to manage, but at this point.
So if there's no other question, I would call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary?
That's fine.
Noted, we have one contrary. Okay, carry.
Item number 3, approval to borrow Russell Heights reconstruction. Be it resolved that the Town Council of Stephenville borrow from the Royal Bank of Canada, St. John's, Newfoundland, for project number 17-GI-24-00025, Russell Heights reconstruction in the amount of $182,758.23 for a term of 3 years with an amortization period of 20 years. The interest rate will be 4.1% with a payment amount of $1,117.47 in monthly blended payments. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Myrowitz, second by Councillor Darren Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carry.
Item number 4, it's approval to borrow Main Street reconstruction. Be it resolved that the Town Council of Stephenville borrow from the Royal Bank of Canada, St. John's, Newfoundland, for project number 17-GI-23-00069 Main Street reconstruction in the amount of $680,206.95 for a term of 3 years with an amortization period of 20 years. The interest rate will be 4.1% with a payment amount of $4,158.84 in the monthly blended payments. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Myrowitz, seconder.
Second.
Second, Councillor Darren Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carry.
Item number 5, a request for sponsorship. Be it resolved that the Town of Stephenville purchase advertisement in the local chapter of Royal Archmasons souvenir booklet in the amount of $100 to support their annual grand convocation. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Myrowitz, second.
Second.
Second, Councillor Maurice Hines. I just want to say before I call for the vote that as a community group too, they were very involved in our winter carnival. And we had a cultural Nigerian night. And I believe Councillor Aylward and Councillor White attended on behalf of the town. And apparently it was stole out or maxed out with
It was a really
capacity.
yeah.
And it went over really, really well. So it's nice to see our community groups being so focused on community and with a diversity and culture focus. So, but also kudos to our management team and Marissa and Marilee and everybody that put the Winter Carnival together. All in favor?
Aye.
Carry.
Item number 6 is a request for sponsorship. Be it resolved that the Town of Stephenville purchase a half-page advertisement in Explorer Down Home Travel Guide in the amount of $1,250. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Myrowitz, second. Second, Councillor Laura Aylward. All in favor?
Aye.
Carry.
And that is the last item for finance today.
Okay, so nothing laying on finance, Candace? Okay, so I'll turn it over to first of all, thank you very much, Councillor White. I'll turn it over to 7.2, our Planning and Development Committee Chair, Councillor Laura Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is approval to submit application for Green Municipal Fund. Be it resolved that the town council approve to submit application to Green Municipal Fund for climate risk assessment and prioritize adaptation plan project. That's a mouthful, for the town of Stephenville. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Edwards, second Deputy Mayor Susan Powell. I'd just like to say that these federal programs for risk mitigation on climate protection is so important, and we have evidence in this town. And, you know, sometimes the modeling will talk about a 1 in 25-year flood and a 1 in 100-year flood. But, and people around the table, Councillor White, you would know, you were probably the closest with your residents, but Councillor O'Brien, you were the mayor at the time for the big flood we had here in 2005. But we often see even the effects of soil erosion on coastlines. We often, tourism drive down to Little Port Harmon, that sometimes when we get storm surges on full moons or new moons and the wind is southwest, it can create a lot of damage and soil erosion and take out roads. So this is a great program, and I think Mike Ratter, you've been working on this as our manager. So anything you want to add that I maybe not covered? Or?
No, that sounds perfect, Tom. And it was just an opportunity for us to get involved in this project that several municipalities across Newfoundland and Labrador have been selected, and we're working with a consultant right now to submit an application through to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So if we're accepted, then we're on board with this project. Meaningful one in addressing our emergency management plan as well.
Perfect. And just one thing on our emergency management plan is because of the resources that we have here with C Company and the Canadian Mounted Police and our fire department and public works and equipment and private contractors, that we often, and we do have neighboring communities tied into our emergency disaster plan to support it as a regional approach, which is really good. And you do a lot of work on emergency management with the College of North Atlantic, as you will know, right?
I believe most communities in Bay St. George now in the peninsula we're all on the same emergency plan. And the flood happened in 2005 when it comes to risk assessment. And that basically continued on afterwards, and things have been done since 2005 that have been done to minimize the risk of it happening again. But projects like this and being put up by the federal government and in some cases the provincial government is good stuff.
So the, just a point to add, Councillor O'Brien and Mayor and others is, so we've undertaken an initiative through our manager of housing, safety and special projects, as well as our fire chief and manager of communications are working closely with the community on updating everything that needs to be updated. COVID interrupted the regular flow of a lot of things in the communities, including an appropriate updating of the emergency plan. So that's being actively worked as we speak. I think they meet on a weekly, Mayor Leeds, and are engaging with all of the stakeholder groups and getting it back on track to where it needs to be with updated contact information, responsible parties, other community liaisons, and that sort of thing. So it's very timely.
Excellent. Okay, I'll
Do the vote, yeah.
in favor.
Aye.
Carried.
Next item is Development Regulation Amendment number 19, 2025. Proposed Development Regulation Amendment number 19, 2025 was advertised and no objections were received. Be it resolved that the town of Stephenville adopt Development Regulation Amendment number 19, 2025, cluster development. Cluster development will has a discretionary use within the zones: residential, medium density, residential, special, commercial, general, and public use to increase housing development. I so move.
Moved by Councilor Edwards, second. Second, Deputy Mayor Susan Fallow.
Just a comment on that, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ensure that people who are listening, that it is discretionary use. One of the, not so much complaint, we did talk with Matthew, one or two people contacted me and they were concerned that this would be willy-nilly build on any piece of property you want. But after talking to Matthew, to reassure them that any application is going to be looked at on an individual basis.
And I just want to say that I guess as a precursor to this policy change, development regulation change amendment, is that when we engage Upland Consultants out of Nova Scotia, they identified that our development regulations were a little too stringent and it didn't allow higher density because a lot of communities like the city of Cornwall, for example, they're allowing this to go ahead. Anytime you have infrastructure and you have vacant areas that could be a higher density or an infilling of higher density, in light of what's happening with housing security and the lack of housing, that this is a really, really good move for municipalities from a, I guess, a cost benefit analysis, but also from a humanitarian, because it will allow higher density multiplexes, and they tend to be at a lower price point than things with wealth. So on that note, all in favor? Carrie, I just want to say great work on behalf of Matt and Mike on this, working with Uplands and bringing this forward. Amendments are important.
That's it for planning,
Okay,
Mayor.
so number 8, we do have one amendment to authority policy. So the amendment to delegation of planning authority policy, be it resolved to approve the town of Stephenville's delegation of planning authority policy amendment number 1, 2025, and this would be updated to stay in line with policy development, sort of reflected from many policies, from what I understand.
So it's the change of legislation. Now the towns in the province are operating under the Towns and Local Services Districts Act. Prior to that, it was the Municipal Act 2001, I think, or something like that. Municipalities Act, sorry. And so this brings it in line. And it's one of these things, nothing really changes when because the continuing legislation allows it to operate when you see it work. But we had the recently adjusted policies, we probably better put it under this. And there will be a number of others that are brought forward as they're reviewed and updated and reworded. So it's just really to bring it in line with current legislation.
Okay, so nothing late for planning? Nope. Okay, number 9, any unfinished business? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Thank you, Councilor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Okay, number 9, is there any unfinished business?
Not so much unfinished business, just the shopping around the Main Street area. A couple of the business owners were, with nice weather, we're looking forward to Main Street starting as soon as possible. And I know that there have been some discussions with planning and so on that Matthew has confirmed that, and the staff is looking into it as soon as we can.
Well, you know, to speak on that, I was thinking today, and I think we did have some discussion that if we have an early spring, and all indications are, and if the contractors can have success with getting started, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, and you know, maybe when it gets completed, we might have a little Kin Square, a little event down on Main Street, just have a little bit of fun.
what, there was no seconder?
It's a big investment.
I didn't do that one, though. He did it,
Yeah.
Then some new pavement.
right?
Like the history,
Um,
first time paid.
I don't think we got a seconder for that motion.
No, you need to go back because it wasn't read out either, I don't think
Okay.
properly. So you commented, we gave you the information, but you didn't read out the actual resolution.
So do you want me to reread it?
Yeah, just reread the,
Okay, so 8.1, amendment to delegation of planning authority policy. Be it resolved to approve the town of Stephenville's delegation of planning authority policy amendment number 1, 2025. I so move. All right.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Susan Powell, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm kind of thinking it's not a planning and finance, as chair, I can leave you.
Mm.
Okay, any other new business?
Just, but one thing, I think it was last meeting I brought up, we lost one of our longtime firefighters, Edgar Gale. I was talking to the family and they would like to extend an invite to all council and our workers, they're having a celebration of life. I think it's either April 24th or April 26th. I can't remember, dates roll up. So I'd like to send an invite to all of them on behalf of the family, and anyone out there that knew them and worked with them, more than welcome to attend.
Had a long, great career.
Mhm.
Yeah. While we're on that note, I had the opportunity today to go to funeral home for Tommy Delant, who just passed away. 82 years old.
Yeah.
And anybody who spent time on the golf course, great athlete, and did a lot of walking, pounding the pavement, going down Little Port Harmon. It's part of his life, you know. But he had a good life.
I was a Legion member for 40 years.
40-year member. That's a lot of greens, a lot of putting. Probably a couple of little swears when he slid one to the left or the right. No, I wouldn't do that.
Big ol'.
Really, big career, not gonna be.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, represented Curling Club on provincial.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Both on your brothers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big time coach too.
I'm just wondering, Candace, I know we had a little bit of damage to one of our wigwams. We took them up in the fall because winter is very hard on structures, which was a really smart move. Any timelines going into the spring by June?
So we've got some good news around, I guess, our cultural space in general. The two wigwams will go back into place as soon as we can, I guess, as soon as the spring will show some consistency. But we've also had the opportunity to commission an artist. We put it out through an expression of interest. We had received funds through Arts NL to be able to commission an artist to design something, some artwork for the next two wigwams. So you'll not see only two, you'll see four there coming up in the spring, and we're going to have a beautiful unveiling ceremony, and our thoughts are around or close to National Indigenous Peoples Day. But we're going to be consulting with the Indigenous community, of course, to ensure that we're not going to overlap with any of the other activities that are being planned for that day. And we're going to also collaborate with all the groups around to have that unveiling ceremony and continue to expand that beautiful cultural space for everybody to enjoy.
Information's on it.
We're going to be doing that too. Right, there's going to be story
Directions.
Right, and so we've also partnered with the Mi'kmaq Cultural Foundation and also in consultation with the rest of the Indigenous community to make plans for further development. They've actually submitted an application to a co-op for some funding to be able to complete a bunch more work, including storyboards, so we can share the history and people can go and learn and grow and celebrate and do all the things and, just bring people together.
The unveiling of the first two went very well, so
Yes, it did.
looking forward to the.
And many more
And
events happening.
hopefully too, because that was a fairly swampy area and tends to be, that there will be, some consideration to people with any mobility issues and some kind of surface so that they can get in and enjoy the space as much.
Some of the plans are to have to pave the pathway there and to have it be fully accessible to anybody, have a place for people to park, considerations for children, all those things are involved in the proposal to develop it further.
So we received some grant money to do some of that?
Well, there's an application submitted through a co-op, and the Mi'kmaq Cultural Foundation is the proponent organization. So time will tell, hopefully.
And what's great is when, anytime you collaborate or get different groups stacking into an application of support, it's always easier for the funding agencies to support it,
Yeah.
And we've been really good at doing that, right?
So the town is acting to assist and facilitate where possible. We have some ability to help organizations in the community. And additionally, I'm not sure if you're able to say, Candace, but we've also assisted another organization with an application for food security, which happened in the last couple of weeks as well. So.
Right, so we've been, and that application we just submitted that a couple of weeks ago, and we have been working on it since our submission to as the fund, as the group has come back and asked us some different questions, but we are partnering with the local community and the Lions Club in particular on this one in the Community Education Network, but it's to support the larger vision of organizations all coming together in partnership to address some of the needs in community around housing insecurity and financial instability, and just trying to create some avenues for which vulnerable populations can get the programs and services that we need here and fill some of the gaps that we have here. So it's part of that greater plan, and hopefully, time will tell on that too, whether or not we're going to receive the funding to support that initiative.
That's great news. I just got one that I was, I think we can have consideration of council that have management, right, the Minister of Transportation. So we're coming into the spring, and a lot of springs when we get rainfall, storm, the melting in the mountains, how often, more times than not, do Route 460 get shut down because the bridge is overflowing at Knowles Pond? So that bridge is not a high suspension bridge, but technically the bottom of that river, you could actually stand underneath that bridge. But every year it gets silted in, the silt that comes down from the storm drainage. So I think because it's not directly in our town boundary, but it's our town planning area. And if we lose the road, that's a critical access point for emergency, for whatever reason. Excuse me. So I'd like, if we could write the Minister of Transport and ask them to get their equipment down there and get the silt taken out from underneath the bridge. And Matt, you might be able to correct me on this one. There's only certain times, like in the spring of the year or in the fall of the year, you can do that. But because you have German brown trout and you have salmon that go through that river system, and DFO has there's certain parameters around. Is my correct there?
Yeah, a certain time of year, you get a permit for working in a salmon bearing stream, basically. And they'll give you stipulations based on the time of year.
Yeah.
You don't work on rain events, things like that.
Yeah. Because what we've noticed in the past, and you've all noticed it, the time when work services comes in is when it's flooded. Then they start working. Well, be a little bit, we're not more risk mitigation, and we're submitting an application to FCM. So let's tell them to be proactive, get underneath the bridge, take out the silt. It's not a big job. And, there's
The damage during the flood with the
Yes.
is down here.
exactly.
When we started, it was less than 2 feet from the bottom of the brook to the bottom of the bridge. By the time we finished, we were driving a dozer under the bridge.
Exactly, because the silt's in, right? So if council's good with that, I think if we could ask.
We'll draft a letter and get the timelines from DFO.
Yeah.
And make the request. One other thing, we're continuing to work on housing needs analysis, which is ongoing with the Memorial University and municipalities, Newfoundland, Labrador, and that's a required document. And we were one of 2 communities that were given priority for housing needs in the province for the study and with support of MNL. At this time, they're going to have to do it for any community that is applying to the Green Municipal Fund and all of the different federal government funding ability under CMHC or whatever. And so we actually participated in a meeting with them again today. This is the second meeting, and there will be others as follow-ups, not just for town personnel, but also for people throughout the community. So in order to get a good quality, high confidence data on exactly what is happening with housing in support of housing initiatives that the town and the business people in town, and even some from outside, hopefully want to invest here, may undertake.
Any other
One last thing, the Lightning just completed, I think, a successful year, even though bowed out in the finals.
But we did well.
Done well. Unfortunately, last two games, we have 4 out with the flu, so short staff and left 2 games, but they put up a gallant effort. Kudos to them, and I look forward to seeing them back next year.
And you know, a lot of support in the community. For the first time in a long time there, solo crowds, solo, right?
Well, the game we put there on Pembroke out, she was pretty well at capacity.
What, good news.
There must be a lot of hockey fans in the area.
Great support.
Well, Toronto Maple Leaf and like.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, put your hand down now.
Me too.
That's another reason I'm alone. I'm awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna have to call for adjournment pretty quick there, Councilor. Something's not allowed here.
I'll get ready to pull the trigger.
Better than thinking that now.
Nothing else, I would ask the member of council, we had a short agenda, we can adjourn our. Moved by Councilor Tom O'Brien, second by Councilor Marla White, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, it is 4:35.
It's right for like.
Hey, that's to make up for the other night.